So my name's Cosmo Sarson, and I'm the artist that painted this Angel of Brighton.
Can you tell me something about the angel that you painted behind you?
Well, she was painted in part memorial to my father, who died a year ago, almost to the date of this mural's completion. He was a Royal College of Art graduate and contemporary of David Hockney. So my dad was a painter as well, which partly inspired me to become an artist myself. So it's in memory of him, plus also the angel really is a follow-on from my exploration of the classics, pursuing neoclassical art, which was a theme I tried to expand on after the breakdancing Jesus. So I tried to look at old master paintings and pursue themes like the Greek myths and biblical stories and things that are featured in these sorts of paintings. And so the idea behind the angel, or how I did the angel really, was by creating an underwater photo shoot in order to get the effect of people flying or floating. So she's actually floating underwater, with the addition of wings that I've dropped in later, but in the original photo shoot she only had a bed sheet to cover her modesty. So yeah, that's how that came about really. And then the glitter is a reference to old religious icon paintings, which normally have gold leaf. So the glitter was a reference to gold leaf, which I'd then recreate. If I was doing an oil painting, I'd then gold leaf my oil painting in reference to those classical paintings and imagery.
So a couple of things in there. I mean, but it's a tribute to your father.
It is, yeah.
Yeah.
In memory of.
What a lovely.
Which happened almost a day to the year of the completion of the painting. Yeah.
All right. And in terms of the style, you talked about the the photo shoot and sort of getting that. Is that because you needed a reference to?
Yeah, so it's not painting from my head. I always need something to look at, either a life figure or a photo, in order to get the detail. I'm not a can man, I'm a brush man, fine art trained, and have always worked with brushes, and so I guess there's sort of connections to fresco painting there, and again the oil painting tradition. So maybe that's a point of difference.
So in terms of I've got some sort of prior knowledge. You kindly showed me some pictures earlier of the photo shoot, but actually hiring a whole underwater tank, getting a proper photographer.
So it was a full-on photo shoot. I always try to create my own reference material. I hate pulling stuff off the internet, and in order to get the poses I want, I've always got to have a model to clothe and costume and to get the poses right. So this one was quite a big shoot. It cost me quite a lot of money to hire an underwater film stage, which I did, a scuba diving photographer, director, lighting, 3 models, costumes. So yeah, I went to a lot of effort to create this image. Hopefully there'll be more to come from that.
And that's a real commitment to your craft. But it's not. But there were others though. There were other images that you got out of this as well, wasn't there?
I've got a couple of hundred images. I'm not sure I needed that many. I only wanted to paint one angel, but wow. There we go. So it may be a theme that gets repeated a bit more.
And I suppose the reason why you would go to that sort of length is to get the accurate portrayal of what somebody would be like if they were floating, or if
exactly.
they were,
or to create the illusion of flying. Maybe next time I'll do a budget version, just get a trampoline instead.
That might be a bit more cost effective. So you mentioned earlier in the interview one of the most famous pieces that people might recognise your work, the breakdancing Jesus in Bristol. Can you tell me something about that?
Well, again, that was something I staged specifically with a friend of mine that specialises in power moves. He's a break dancer. So I dressed him up in a wig and a loincloth, and then got him to do loads and loads of windmills and fly mills, and then he pulled off the final move at the end of the shoot. He did a one-armed handstand saluting, that was the image that went up on the wall opposite Banksy in Bristol. and I did another version which was an oil painting which went viral, where I superimposed that image of him breakdancing and dropped him into a scene where the cardinals were all standing in the Vatican applauding. But what you don't see is that I've actually cropped the original photo of the cardinals applauding. The reason they were clapping was the Pope had just entered the room. So it just formed a perfect b-boy circle where I had Jesus breakdancing in the middle, which was great. Again, that was just a random drunken idea I had late one night as I squinted with double vision at a newspaper article about a Polish youth group breakdancing for the Pope. This is Pope John Paul II, who was trying to reach out to a younger audience, I think. So I invited this Polish youth group to breakdance in the Vatican, and one of them was just wearing shorts, and it looked to my eyes as if it was Jesus in a loincloth breakdancing. So it wasn't a great leap of the imagination, but just something that occurred to me after a couple of pints, and that sort of worked. And then that image went viral, and kind of made me that one.
And you know, you're not really a street artist, are you? You're an oil painter.
Well, I consider myself to come from a fine art background, unlike a lot of street artists that are self-trained. I actually went to art school and studied light painting and that sort of stuff, and so my adherence to the use of brushes and paints very much comes from my art school training. I've dabbled in graffiti when I was young and when I was an early breakdancer way back when, but you know, that's not really. I wouldn't say I come from a school of graffiti.
Oh, so the breakdancing Jesus had some, you know, there's something else there.
Because I've always been a bit of a b-boy, and I'm into my early tunes. So it had a lot of connection for my youth as my upbringing. Yeah.
So moving from this sort of more traditional background in terms of oil painting and your art education into the sort of street art scene, how have you found that? How have you found the moving into that area? I mean, I know you still do the oil painting quite a lot, but
yeah,
is there much of a difference? Or?
I'm sort of stumped by that question.
I do that very well.
Yeah.
I suppose
how do I get on with the street art?
No. I suppose what I'm asking is that, you know, if you're used to doing oil painting in a studio and you're used to doing canvas work, how does that translate to such a massive wall?
Quite easily, because I also work in the film industry as a scenic artist, so I'm used to painting big, whereas normally you'd have a green screen. I'm up on the scissor lift painting in a big background for something that's in the distance of a set, so I'm used to working very quickly with brushes on a scissor lift, knocking in the background. So the jump in scale wasn't that great, because that's my professional life as a jobbing artist. That's what I do during the day. So for me to take on a wall of this scale isn't so unfamiliar to me, because I already do that as a scenic artist in the film industry.
So you're well used to doing these sort of
working on large scale. Yeah.
So would we have seen your work in any particular films that we might?
You will have seen them in a lot of films. I did the graffiti for World War Z. I did the portraits of Brad Pitt in Allied. I worked on Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, Sweeney Todd. What else have I done?
So she's painting
James Bond. I did Skyfall, Spectre. I've done over 30 big feature films in my career as a scenic artist. So there's loads of films you'll see. Guardians of the Galaxy I worked on.
So they give you a brief and you just got to reimagine what that is.
But the thing is with that job is your designer will give you a brief and then you have to paint in a certain style. So it's not you're not free as an artist. You're very much working to a brief. So if it's a period film like Snow White and the Huntsman, I'll be painting medieval tapestries or whatever it is. Or so I did The Mummy with Tom Cruise. I had to paint the hieroglyphs on the tombs there. and then with Born Supremacy, I had to do the graffiti in the tunnels. So one minute I'm doing graffiti, the next minute I'm doing frescoes, I'm faking oil paintings, or I'm painting a tapestry, or it can jump from anything to anything.
But this stuff behind you, like I say, this is your own sort of your passion.
Yeah.
Tell me something more about you. You mentioned some of the influences which have led you to painting in this particular style.
Looking at old masters very much, as I said earlier, developing the theme from classical artists, so looking at Caravaggios and Rembrandts and the biblical stories. So I'd like to try and refer to the old masters or classical paintings as such. And in a way, I quite like the fact that I'm almost bringing that dusty old painting that exists in museums out onto the street in a way, and I like to reference that in my street art.
So looking at this particular image there, that's got a background from many years ago, from old artists of the past and stuff.
It's got an accumulated knowledge of old Rococo paintings, or a Rubens Angel, or a Titian cherub, or something like that.
Cosmo, thank you very much for talking to me.